here. We're excited to be here. If you are just joining, welcome. This is What's the Plan with Leah and Ezra. We've got I got water. Leah actually got a real drink. We're going to get started in about 30 seconds.
A soda, not a real drink, sounds a
Oh,
little
it's
aggressive.
a little bit early for a
That would
real
be a
drink.
little
Yeah.
early. Yeah.
Um, thank you. People have already started introducing yourselves from around the country. Uh, Excellency, we got Minneapolis, we got the Oregon coast, we've got New York City, we've got Washington, we've got Chicago. Yeah, just let us know. Let us know where you're coming in from. Let everybody else know. Remember, the authoritarians want you to feel alone. They want you to feel powerless. They want you to think they're all powerful. And as we show each other on every one of these Thursday calls, we are not alone. We are all building all around the country. There is nothing authoritarian is more scared of than organized people who disagree with them. And that's what we're doing. I love the emojis. A lot of love over here for all of y'all. If you want to communicate with us in that way, we will take it. I think emojis are a great way to express how you're feeling. We've got a few thousand people on the call now. Like I said, we'll give it another 20 seconds and then we'll get started. We've had some good technological innovations for these calls, so we'll get into the Q&A, but people, just like last time, will be able to vote on questions. So we'll get into how to do all of that in just a sec. You will see me sometimes reaching over because I'm just looking at the Google Doc that says what we do next. Uh, it's a real grassroots effort. Okay, Leah, should we get
Yeah,
started? Your
absolutely.
hair looks great. Yeah.
Absolutely. Great, great. Yeah, let's get started with a little housekeeping.
Um, well,
Oh, no, you first?
Well,
Okay.
I'm gonna because
Yeah.
I want to call out some new groups that have just
Okay,
joined
great.
because so if you're new here, welcome. As we always say, this is a people-powered movement. We need you here. The way we win against the creeping authoritarianism is to organize our people wherever we are. So you're here, just excited to be building with you. Hopefully you learn a little bit here, but we have a bias towards action. This is not just some sort of talking head show. We want to give you information so that you can lead this movement wherever you are. Um, Throughout history, as I've said before, there has been no solution to creeping authoritarianism that isn't based in massive, broad-based organizing with people from all walks of life. So if you're here, you're part of this fight for our constitutional republic, and we need you. We need you. So thank you. We have been saying on this call and in other places that we are in the midst of a wave moment for Indivisible and for grassroots opposition right now, which is really as bad as everything is happening in Washington, D.C., that's the encouraging thing. This is the silver lining that's out there. We had more indivisible groups form in November than any month since 2017. Then we had more groups in December than in November. Then we had more groups in January than December, then more groups in February than January. It is March 13th. Since last week, since we last talked, 72 new indivisible groups have joined. 72.
Right, it's
Oh,
10 a day.
10 a day, a little bit more than 10 a day on average. I'm just going to call out a couple. Indivisible Peninsula, Maine, in Blue Hill Peninsula, Maine. Welcome to the movement. Indivisible Butte in Butte, Montana. Welcome to the movement. Show some love for Butte, y'all. Flat River Indivisible in Carson City, Michigan. We've got Petersburg Friends and Neighbors. I love Petersburg Friends and Neighbors. Don't you just want to go to one of their meetings? That's in Petersburg, Alaska. I would love to go to Petersburg, Alaska to one of their meetings. And Indivisible Lock Haven, Pennsylvania. That's 5 of 72. If I didn't call you out, you're still, we love you and part of, as being part of this movement. Thank you for organizing wherever you are. Red states, blue states, purple states, rural areas, suburban areas, urban areas. This is going to take all of us. And we're just thrilled to be doing this together. Leah, okay, now I stepped on your announcement. So you want to cover how
Okay,
these work a little
so
bit?
if you are just joining us, here is the deal about these tasks. These conversations are mostly Q&A. Ezra will start with a quick monologue about what has been happening this week. We've got some live questions. We've got some submitted in advance by folks and they registered. If we are now using a very cool live function where if you enter your question in the Q&A feature at the bottom of the screen, people can upvote so we can answer the most popular questions and you can vote on which ones you want to see answered. Um, and we'll post links in the chat as we go. So, if you miss something, if you are if you saw something fly by and you didn't get it, don't worry, you're gonna get it in the chat, and then you're also gonna get it in an email afterwards. This is recorded. We will send out the recording to everybody who is on the call. So again, if you want to watch it a lot of times, you can do that. I don't know if you want to watch it a lot of times, but you can. we're going to keep doing these as long as people find them useful. They are growing in size, so people seem to find them useful. So we're going to keep doing them. And then just a note on the chat box. The chat box goes very fast. There is a lot in it. We ask folks to keep the conversation constructive, to keep it supportive. We are all in this together. We are all facing the same massive threat. We're all facing really personal consequences of that. We're all facing really personal impacts. It can be hard and emotional when something this scary and personal is happening. We really want to lift each other up and support, even if we disagree on strategy, even if we're doing different things, that kind of respect and love for each other, that's foundational to our ability to organize together.
Not only does the chat move fast, but both my lips and Leah's lips move very fast too, because we talk
Yes.
very fast, and I welcome regular correctives to that because we get heated, we get energetic, and because we feel so passionately about this. But please remind us if we're speaking too quickly, we'll try to slow it down a bit. And I did see a question. Somebody asked, "Hey, I didn't get an email with the recording last time." We have identified actually an issue on this front. Some number of folks have unsubscribed at some point from Indivisible emails. And why
Why?
would you ever do that?
Hey,
No, it
just
happens.
kidding.
It's fine. It's fine. But some number of folks have done that. If you haven't gotten one and you think maybe you're not getting it, you can email support team at indivisible.org. We'll put it there. We'll have a list and we'll be able to add you back in. Again, support team at indivisible.org. That's why you haven't been getting it. Oh, great. Somebody just put in a link. So please shoot an email, say, hey, I'm not getting the follow-up. Send him over. Uh, on that note, as Leah mentioned, I'm going to cover a little bit about what's happened since the last week, which is quite a bit. Um, but just to know, we already have 243 votes for the top question. So if you haven't looked at the question section of your Zoom, you should look there because we're just going to go through, in addition to looking at the folks who sent some questions ahead of time, we're going to go through the ones that are most popular with you all. That's how we do it. So we're not trying to hide. We will answer tough questions. If you got tough questions, ask them. We're here to build together. Nobody has all the answers, but we want to discuss. Okay, a note on this. In the last follow-up email, so for those of you who do it, and we had thousands of people receiving and responding to it, we asked about a strategic question. And this was kind of a meaty question because we were headed into this funding fight around the House Republicans were pushing forward a MAGA bill that increases funding for ICE and for military spending and would give more latitude to Musk and Trump to choose what gets funded. They were pushing that forward, and there was a question: how should Democrats respond? What should their move be here? What should House Dems do and Senate Dems do? And we asked you all. There were three choices. One, don't give any votes at all unless there are safeguards against what Musk is doing. Two, a short-term clean funding bill to give them more room to negotiate. Or three, just accept a long-term clean funding bill. Don't do short-term. Those were the three options. 67% of y'all who responded said no votes without safeguards, full stop, even if that entails a shutdown. That's what you said. 29% said, sure, a short-term funding bill that's clean to negotiate more, use up time, use your leverage. 29%. 4% said long-term CR, a continuing resolution funding bill that's clean. Just 4% said that so that we could move on and talk about the other things that the Republicans are trying to do. 4%. I didn't even include in that survey, we didn't include just accept the Republican funding bill. That wasn't even an option because I didn't think anybody wanted that. Obviously, nobody wanted to just swallow what Mike Johnson was going to give us. Well, here we are today. Here we are today. Uh, I will say, I've been critical of Hakeem Jeffries' leadership of the House Democratic Caucus plenty of times over the course of the last few months, but we should be celebrating House Democrats. We absolutely should, because they whipped their caucus against the MAGA bill. They whipped them. Every single one of them, save for Golden and Maine, voted against this. That was essentially a unified House Democratic opposition. That's not where they started. We were very worried they were going to fracture, that there were going to be a lot of Dems going to vote for that bill, to be honest. And let me tell you, if they had done that, game over. There would be no fight in the Senate. It would just be game over. So I want to be really clear. They did a good job. House Dems did a very good job. Recess is
Thank
coming
them.
up next week. We should be thanking them. We should be calling them and saying, we see what you did. You unified. That's what a unified opposition looks like. We see you. We support you. Keep it up. We've got your back. That's for, the emails and the calls you make, but also recess is next week. When you show up and see them at town halls, let them know we see what your vote did. This is helpful. Thank you. Keep going. Now, as of earlier this week, the House Dems were representing the dominant Dem position, which was, frankly, no votes for any bill unless it includes safeguards against Musk. Basically, what we were asking. Right now in the Senate, we are in flux. Nobody really knows what is going to happen. By all accounts, it really does seem like Schumer expected the Republican bill possibly to fail, and then there would be more room for negotiation. That didn't happen. The Republicans passed their bill with their votes. And so now where we are with the Senate is we're getting a lot of mixed messages. Some want to fight, some want to fold. The reports we've gotten earlier in the week is that Schumer is not organizing a unified front against this. That's not what it's looking like. So we started amping up pressure on Senate Dems after the House bill passed, and we sent them your survey responses. We said, look, this is where your base is. This is going to be the response of people out in the world. They are looking for you to fight back. Part of Indivisible's role is to try to demystify somewhat complex processes. So I'm going to describe to you what a cave looks like. I think it's important for us to understand what it would look like for the Democrats in the Senate to surrender. The bill, as it currently exists, this MAGA funding bill, requires 60 votes in the Senate to move forward. That's why this is any kind of discussion at all. The fact that it requires 60 votes to move forward, that's why Democrats have leverage. Republicans in the Senate don't have 60 votes. They've got 53 votes. So they've somehow got to find 7 votes, maybe 8 if they're not able to keep Rand Paul on board on their side. 7 or 8 votes in order to move this forward. That 60 vote threshold is what's known as cloture. You cut off debate and move forward with a vote on the underlying bill. If you hit 60 votes for cloture, then you just need 50 votes to pass the underlying bill, the actual MAGA funding bill. So here's what a cave would look like in realistically what it would look like. 7 or 8 Democrats would say, I oppose this bill, but I'm going to vote for cloture. And then in exchange, what John Thune and the Senate Republicans will give me is the right to vote for a clean short-term funding bill. Now, what's a delicate way to put this? This is bullshit. This is not a real strategy. The reason why you do this is because you think your constituents are too dumb to understand how congressional procedure works. It's because you think when you vote for cloture and then vote against the bill itself, you can beat your chest back home and say, I fought the Republican bill, but you actually didn't. You actually didn't. So they are trying to trick their constituents. That's what that cave would look like. They haven't caved yet. They have not caved yet. This is still a jump ball. This is going to be determined sometime in the next day or so. It's all coming to a head Friday night. Maybe it bleeds into the weekend. That's possible. The smart money right now is that Dems may very well cave. It's something like 60, 70% chance if you're talking to insiders right now. But nobody knows. Nobody knows. So, real talk, we might win this. We might lose this. But here's what I would say. There's a tendency for folks to think of DC like it's the house of cards. Like there are these brilliant competing Machiavellian strategists who are all planning 7 moves ahead and working against each other. Let me tell you, as a former congressional staffer, we both worked on Capitol Hill. This isn't House of Cards, y'all. This is not House of Cards. It's more like Mean Girls or Veep. It's petty, it's farcical, it's chaotic. There are cool kids, there are losers, there are jocks, there are nerds, there's stupid, misguided self-interest, and there are happy accidents that occur. There's a lot of chaos on Capitol Hill among members behind closed doors. And the good news about that chaos is that a dose of reality, real people saying, hey, I care about this, it's actually really helpful in moving individual members who haven't yet landed. So what our job in this moment, when things are in flux, our job right now is to make as clear to them as possible what we want to see and what the consequences will be if we don't see it. That's what we can do. We can factor into their political calculus. I don't want them to be surprised if they cave and then tons of constituents back home show up at their town halls angry. They should know that's the cost of them caving. They should know it ahead of time. And then we have to show them that we're upset if they do indeed cave. I want them to know we will celebrate them at the town halls. We will be there behind them, cheering them on if they hold tight. So we've got to communicate that to them. I'm going to follow up. Normally, we follow up the next day with a survey. Time is of the essence right now. So you should be looking out in your email this afternoon after this call for a follow-up email. It'll have the recording and everything else. It's also going to have a survey. And the survey is going to ask you specifically, if Democrats hold strong in the Senate, what are you willing to do? What are you willing to do? Are you willing to write? It's something like write an op-ed, call their office, show up at a district office, show up at a public town hall. Tell me what you are willing to do. And second, if Democrats in the Senate cave, what are you willing to do? How are you going to hold them accountable? What I will do with that and what our team will do with that is share that with them now. We will share it with the Senate Democrats so they can factor this in to how they're making decisions. But we need you to participate in this so we can say, this isn't just Ezra, this isn't just Leah talking. We're telling you what the constituents want to see happen. So please help me with that. Look out in your email for what's coming. I'm seeing questions about targets. We'll get into that in a bit. We do have specific targets, but if you have a Senate Democrat, you should call them. Full stop. We can get into more targets, but that's the basic one. Okay, we're going to get into questions, but now for something completely different for Monty Python fans. I want to end a note on security. We've talked a lot about security on this call and in other calls with the Indivisible groups. I gotta say, this is a scary time to be organizing. I tell this to new Indivisible group leaders who are joining. I'm so proud that you all are choosing to take a step forward, to take on some amount of risk because you understand these are scary authoritarians who are coming after folks who dare voice dissent in public. It's what's making this work impactful right now. It's not easy for everybody, but you're standing up, you're taking risks, you're organizing. It's courageous. Look, it's courageous. And what we say, and it might sound like a bumper sticker, courage is indeed contagious. It really is. It leads more people to organize. And that kind of organized people power, it's the only thing the authoritarians are scared of. They're scared that people are going to peacefully protest together, which will alert the broader public that what they're doing is unpopular, which will weaken them and prevent them from doing more damage. So I have a huge amount of appreciation for all of you who are doing this work. We are proud to be in this movement with y'all. And with that said, I want to tell you about what's gone down over the last week, which is we called for peaceful protests over at Tesla dealerships in the last February recess. These have been happening all over the world. And it's not just Indivisible. There are a lot of good groups who are doing these peaceful protests. And I love to see it. You know who doesn't love to see it? President Elon Musk. He does not like to see people calling him out. He does not like to see people damaging his credibility. He's the arguably most powerful person in the world. He's never held a public town hall, but he does have a couple hundred local offices all around the country in the form of Tesla dealerships. And people are showing up to make their voice heard. And we recommend they do that in peaceful ways. Now, completely separate from Indivisible, there have been some idiots who have engaged in property destruction at Tesla dealerships. That has happened. There have been incidents of that. And because of that, because of those actions, Musk and Trump and Fox News and Marjorie Taylor Greene are trying to use those actions as an excuse to harass peaceful protesters. Like Musk tweeted out pictures of me and Leah, asked for investigations. Jesse Waters on Fox News labeled us domestic terrorists. Trump threatened to label us as such as well. Marjorie Taylor Greene just yesterday sent a letter to the FBI saying they should investigate Indivisible. This is infuriating for anybody who has a passing acquaintance with Indivisible. Nonviolence is obviously in our DNA. It permeates everything we do. All of our strategies, all of our tactics, all of our guidance is rooted in this basic belief that peaceful, local, organized, constituent public action is how you persuade the majority to come to your side. It's how you weaken the authoritarians' hold on power. That's foundational. If you're engaged in violence, you're not part of this movement. Full stop. Full stop. Now, anybody with a passing acquaintance with Donald Trump knows he doesn't give a shit about domestic violence. If he did, he wouldn't have pardoned the January 6th protesters who were insurrectionists, who were attacking cops and our republic. So I want to be clear. This is a simple attempt to scare the peaceful opposition into submission. It, if Elon wants folks to stop peacefully protesting him, he should stop engaging blatantly in a legal and unconstitutional raid on our government. And until then, you bet your ass we're going to be peacefully protesting Tesla dealerships. That's going to continue. With that, that's all I want to say. Let's get to the Q&A. And we're going to start with the top question in the list. It's got 424 upvotes, and so please keep on asking questions and upvoting. We're going to spend the rest of the time just on Q&A. Question from Michelle. Do you have an update on the April 5th March event? Leah, I've been talking too much.
Update, yes. And folks, I know I saw a couple people in the chat like Leah should talk to. Ezra writes the monologue. We do different things. We do, we divide and conquer here. I'm taking more of the Q&A. So, the April 5th event, we are going to announce tomorrow to the public. We have been, I know some folks have been in touch already about setting up maps or setting up events in various places if you are preparing to host an event for yourself. For folks who weren't with us and haven't heard kind of the background here, we're coming together with a bunch of folks across the movement ecosystem, across the country to say hands off our democracy, hands off our government, hands off our services like Medicaid, Social Security, Medicare, and to tell them that they need to back off because we're going to fight back and stop them. Now, that is going to be on April 5th, like we said. It is going to be all over. And we are going to be launching publicly tomorrow. We're also partnering, we're working with folks like the 5051 folks who are also going to be pulling together April events. So we're really going to encourage everyone to collectively pull together for one big show of force. We want people to see how big, how broad, how everywhere the Trump or the resistance to what is happening is. And so we're going to really be having this be a very exciting moment for us to all come together and say that after we get through recess, because we have got a lot of exciting and important recess actions to do first.
Yeah, and Mika Sifri, I saw in the chat. Thank you for the flag. I didn't have most upvotes. I had most recent, although Michelle was still the number two. Number one, Leah's father actually just sent this to me too and alerted me to this. This is a great idea. So Daphne wrote, Jamie Raskin is asking asking that everyone submit a FOIA request to Doge. What's the best, easiest way to do this, and what impact will this have? What is critical mass for it to make a difference? And are we setting ourselves up as targets if we do this?
I saw that email. I think it's pretty cool. I honestly haven't looked into exactly how impactful it's going to be. I think the basic framework for folks who didn't see this is, it's asking folks to submit a FOIA request about their own data and what's been shared. They need to either honor those FOIA requests or that is further grounds that they are doing stuff that is illegal.
FOIA, do you want
to sorry. Freedom of Information Act. So this is your right to understand, public information, or government information. So I just totally honestly, like, I don't have a great sense of exactly what the timelines are, what are the specific requirements and how that factors into the lawsuits, but I have a lot of trust in Jamie Raskin to identify, strategic pathways forward. So it seems like an exciting avenue.
Yeah, I would just underline Jamie Raskin's brilliant and he doesn't do BS stunts. Right. I trust him and I trust his analysis of the situation. I don't know how Doge will respond, right. But I do know he sent around a form that you can use that's a generic form. We're looking into if we can help out to push it. But look, if Jamie Raskin says this is a smart tactic and this is something you can do and it doesn't take that much time, I don't know. I would tend to take that as on face value as a worthwhile activity. We're going to go back to questions that are coming in live, but I want to respect some people sending questions ahead of time, so we'll try to bounce back to those. We had a few questions on town halls. JC from California said, can you give 3 or 4 talking points to send out to our reps as evidence that democracy is under attack? Leah, is that what you would be sending to reps now? Evidence that our democracy is under attack?
Yeah, so it's a good question. I guess what I would say is I don't think we're having a persuasion about the facts argument with our representatives right now. Like, you're a Republican, if you're talking to a Republican representative, and I assume you are if you're trying to persuade them that democracy is under attack, maybe you're talking to a Republican. If you're talking to a Republican, they know. They're totally aware. They're either actively cheering it on or they are cowed into submission. The thing we are trying to do is alter the underlying political incentives so that they think oh gosh, if I want to get reelected, if I want to save my own political career, I got to position myself farther along here. I got to push back in private or in public. So that's what we're not trying to convince them that this is bad. We're trying to convince them that there are political consequences for what they are doing. Now, similarly with a Democrat, Democrats are all over the place, just to be totally honest with you, in terms of how much they think this is an emergency. And I would focus less on trying to change their hearts and minds and more on trying to shift their understanding of where their constituents are. So you don't have to persuade them. You need to show them that there are a lot of people who are incredibly alarmed and who want them to take action.
Yeah. I will say I kind of have a basic strategic take. It's not philosophical. It's just like what works take on talking to members of Congress. You got to understand that world is chaotic, and unless it's something that is immediately actionable, it's in one ear out the other. The best kind of thing to talk to a member of Congress about is something that is concrete, that is coming up tomorrow or later this week, and that is very public and visible. So you can verify whether or not they did the thing or didn't do the thing. Trying to convince them to see the world through the same prism that you see, that's hard to do, and it's hard to hold them accountable for that.
Yeah.
But an event like we're having today, right around a funding fight where you can see whether or not your Senate Democrat voted the right way or the wrong way, that's a perfect ask. It's such a good ask because that is when they actually demonstrate that they're with you or not. They will tell you, oh, it's a constitutional crisis. Oh, absolutely, democracy is under threat. They'll tell you that, and then they might not actually take any action. So I'm not looking to become best buds with my elected officials. I'm not looking to make sure that we are perfectly aligned philosophically. I want them to do the right thing. I want them to take the right votes. That's all I want. And that's enough. And that's the thing we can hold them accountable for. Let's bounce to live questions again. So the next most upvoted question from C. Ogwin. It was great to see Ezra quoted in the article about Bernie Sanders' anti-oligarchy tour. For those who aren't following, Bernie is going across to red states all around the country and getting these huge crowds pushing back against MAGA Republicans, which I think is great. Can you talk about how Indivisible Can is supporting and partnering with Bernie Sanders? Is he involved in the April 5th protest plans? How can we leverage his momentum following and falling to combine forces? One thing I will note, we've seen some more uptake of Democrats traveling to red districts, which I really love to see. This is a tactic that we've been pushing, and it's been a little bit slow to get it up off the ground. But I think now Democrats are seeing there's an opportunity here. So Tim Walz, for instance, is going, where is he going? To a couple of districts. He's
Yeah.
going to Don Bacon's district in Nebraska, I
Love
think,
it.
and a few other Republican districts. So Republicans who are hiding, where I've gotten outreach, I won't name names, from Democratic members who are saying, hey, we're thinking about going to X Republican district. So this is catching fire. I think any Democrat who is engaged in this fight and getting some creative action like this, it's great. We should be encouraging it. It is smart. It demonstrates both that the Republicans are extreme, but they're also cowards, which is awesome. Leah, anything else on Bernie specifically, though? Yeah.
Just appreciation. Look, there are a lot of folks right now who are keeping their heads down mostly and kind of waiting for Trump to screw up. And Bernie got out there.
Yep.
He like launched, he got his message out. He's activating people who might not be activated in this moment. We need more people to do creative stuff like that. It doesn't have to, it doesn't all have to be centrally coordinated. It has to be a lot.
Yep. 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 Okay, let's do answer live. Done. Okay, Jeffrey asked, do you recommend donating to the DNC given the Dems' poor opposition performance? Great question, Jeffrey.
Yeah, we're not an arm of the Democratic Party. We don't have we're not gonna take a lot of positions on who in the Democratic Party you should donate to. I would say we want to support, the grassroots. We want to support compelling candidates. Right now, I think there are a lot of people who you can strengthen their hand by moving a little bit of cash their way. If you see somebody who's doing a good job, a frontliner who's being really courageous, a member of the Democratic caucus who's really standing out and fighting back, a state attorney general or a governor who is doing a good job and pushing back, unlike certain people, Gavin Newsom, ahem. The those are folks that you can kind of vote with your dollars to support, right? And of course, obviously, there's a huge ecosystem of grassroots organizers, grassroots infrastructure, local indivisible groups. I got to shout out. We've got a lot of folks here who are, we're doing a lot with not a ton of money. So I would say try to move things to people who are in motion right now. I hope the DNC is, on a path to getting there, but it's not where we're putting our money right now. Let's put it that way.
Nope. Okay, a question that came in ahead of time. Sorry, I'm just looking. Okay, Barbara from Tennessee. What can we do when we cannot get our MOCs, members of
Yeah.
Congress, recess schedules? And I'm assuming, Barbara, they're not
Mm,
only Republicans in Tennessee, but I'm assuming Barbara's
it's gonna
asking
be,
about
yeah,
Republicans in Tennessee.
yeah. I would say that this goes in the missing member category. These are
Yeah.
people who are not making their schedules public because they do not want to talk to anybody who might disagree with them, right? Like it's not that they forgot to put it on the website. It's that they made a decision not to tell you how to talk to them. And so I think that you got to apply the missing member toolkit, right?
Hmm.
Have the town hall, invite them. They're welcome to come. They're welcome to present their side of the story. But if they don't come, you're going to be telling what's happening in DC. You're going to be getting that, chicken suit I guess we used to have a live chicken. We don't recommend that because of avian flu and everything, but you're going to be representing them in absentia and you're going to be talking to people in your area about the harm they're doing and the harm they're enabling.
We'll follow up. We have a resource on missing member or empty chair town halls. I think it's a great tactic,
Yeah.
especially right now as they're hiding. It's excellent. Next highest voted question that's come in live with 184 votes is from Judy, should we stop paying federal taxes?
That is
One thing
not
I would just preface, we are not lawyers, nor are we your tax advisors.
yeah,
So yeah.
that is not something that we are advising folks to do or not do right now. Like I just to be honest, like that's not something that we've taken a position on. And obviously that's something that you are making your own decisions on, but we're not that is not something that we are recommending.
Yeah, I think some folks I've heard are filing for extensions if they want to delay more. I think it is a big collective action problem, though, if you're trying to actually impact behavior of Donald Trump or Elon Musk. I think that would require more than you just taking that
Yeah.
individual
Don't
action. At Indivisible, we're always looking for what is the action that we can collectively take that reasonably will move the target in some way. So the reason why you're hearing us talk right now a lot about this funding bill is because this is something we can collectively do to actually make a difference in national politics. Like right now, we can do that. I'm not against other tactics, and sometimes I mean, we're always looking for different strategies and tactics that can have impact, but we do try to avoid just signing on to everything that's out there. And I think we should all be just like think critically about, okay, what is the change that is going to occur if I and many others sign on to this, and how do I get that many people to sign on to it such that it will have that impact?
But I do want to be clear that we are going to advise you to follow the law in our actions and in our strategies.
Always, always. Great. Thank you, though, Judy, for the question. We got one more question that came in ahead of time, just about the town halls. This is from CO from California. Co from California asks, as we prepare for town halls, can you give us some concrete messages slash questions to say and ask different types of reps? I'll just quickly say we've got that. We'll follow up with it. There's a whole toolkit for next week. It's a couple dozen pages, and it's strategies, tactics, messaging. We've got that for you. No worries. You do not have to be an expert. But Leah, anything else on that?
Yeah, we will get you the messaging. Don't worry, you're not going to be going it alone. We're going to try and make sure that you've got great messaging and great support for those.
Yep. Okay, Jane, Diana, you are the next most voted question. Oh wait, I skipped Stephanie, who just overpassed you, overtook you. But we'll stick with Jane. Jane said, "Please again explain cloture, the filibuster, and 60 votes as opposed to not 60." I think I know, but when I start to think about it, my brain goes sideways.
I
Can I just appreciate you, Jane? Thank you for asking that question in that way. These processes are intentionally obscure and difficult to understand because then the lobbyists and the donors have an easier time impacting things than you. So,
yeah.
Leah, do you want to explain?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So the filibuster is basically it is a legislative loophole from an extended period a long time ago. And the short version is that it requires 60 votes to stop debate on a specific item and move to a formal vote. Okay. Now we can have a long conversation about that and how it's worked and how it's functioned, but that is what it is right now. And we are in favor of using the tools that we have in order to deal with the situation that we have. The budget process is subject to the filibuster, or sorry, this funding bill is subject to the filibuster. Subsequent stuff is not necessarily subject to the filibuster. So, for example, the upcoming reconciliation bill that is going to be the place where they try to do a massive tax giveaway, that is not subject to the filibuster. It can be passed with 50 votes in the Senate. This, however, is subject to the filibuster, which means that they are going to need 60 votes in order to move it to the formal yes/no vote to pass. Now, there was like a time pre-Tea Party, in the early 2000s before that, when a really routine thing that would happen is people would vote to move a bill. They would vote to move the bill to the floor for the ultimate vote, and then they would vote against it on the floor. And then they'd go home and they'd say, "Oh, I didn't vote for that bill," right?
Yeah,
And the thing is, like, these days we see through that, right? We understand that the point at which you actually are able to say no and have that no matter is the cloture vote. And so when we're talking about, a strategy like the one that Ezra outlined, where you vote to move the bill to the floor and then you vote no on it, what we understand that to be is you giving up the actual leverage you have in order to take a symbolic no vote afterwards.
that's right. I think for this fight right now, the vote we are looking for Senate Democrats is vote no on cloture. That's what we care about. If they say anything other than I'm voting no on cloture or I voted no on cloture, you should have questions. Cloture is the 60 vote. That's the threshold. So cloture means closing off debate so that you can have a vote on the bill itself. So that's what you want. Vote no on cloture. And sorry for folks who sorry, I saw your question, Matthew. We're getting to it. We're getting to it. Next up is Matthew Hooper. I feel like a lot of what we get fired up about ends up being smoke and mirrors. How do we stay focused on the issues at hand without falling for traps that don't matter? And maybe more importantly, how do we tell which issues are less important than others when contacting our reps? Ah, I love this question. That's such a good
Gosh,
question. Yeah.
it is a good question. I want to just say, first of all, that one thing that's just absolutely agonizing about this moment is that there are simply more horrible things happening than we have the like time, the space, the capacity to fully process and campaign on at the level that they deserve. And so if you're feeling like a little overwhelmed because there's just so much that's under attack, please know that that is how a lot of folks feel. And also please recognize that even people who are doing this full time with their full time jobs, we do not have the ability to consistent, like we don't have the ability to do everything all the day or all day anyways. Now, Indivisible, like when we send out our weekly alerts, we are trying to track for you where can you have the most leverage on the things that are the most urgent, right? And that means, sometimes there's a bill that's like been introduced in the House, but we don't think it's actually going to get a vote. The bill sounds terrible, but we're not going to recommend you call about that because it's not even scheduled to move forward to a vote. We don't think it's going to pass if it does, et cetera, et cetera. So there's sometimes where something that sounds really horrible is not really on track to move towards passage. And thus, we've made an assessment that we got to save our energy and call about something else. Now, in general, when we call our reps, we focus first and foremost on things that they're actually going to have to take a position on formally, right? So things that are moving through Congress where we know that they're going to have a moment where they got to, vote yes, vote no, do procedural maneuvers or not do procedural maneuvers, et cetera, et cetera. The stuff where we know that they have to use their leverage and we can assess them. There's another bucket of stuff that's essentially like call your rep and tell them to weigh in on something else, right? Weigh in on something that the president is doing, denounce something that the president is doing, et cetera, et cetera. That stuff can still be really useful in specific moments for kind of like shifting the environment and the political conditions and making something a bigger story, getting more attention, et cetera, et cetera. A lot of it is going to be judgment calls. And we're just having to make a lot of judgment calls right now, right? We're trying to protect a lot of things that are under threat. We're trying to tell a political story about what is happening that brings more people into our coalition. It requires on a daily basis making calls about what are we going to elevate as the most central, most strategic, most important thing for you to focus on right now. We do our best, other people do their best. It's going to involve like it's just going to involve judgment calls going forward.
I will say, just to brag on our team, we have a pretty awesome policy team, advocacy team that holds relationships on Capitol Hill and with partners. It was regularly talking to Capitol Hill. They're where we get a lot of our intel. Leah and I will talk to partners and members of Congress as well. But we're trying to stay attentive to what is moving and what actually could benefit from constituent pressure. So we do our best to do that. The best way to understand what we're thinking, we tell anybody who wants to listen, this is a public movement. So sign up for the list, go on Blue Sky, follow us, follow Indivisible. I think that'll be a good way to try to identify opportunities. This isn't a question that's come up yet, but I'm seeing a lot in the chat, and I do want to point out people are asking, so which Dims right now in the Senate? Leah, do you want to cover just like overall strategy, and then I'll cover the individual Dims
You mean on the budget fight
on the
right now?
sorry on the not budget
Oh,
fight,
sorry, the
funding
funding
fight.
fight. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so right now, just to be clear, there are specific Dems that we think might be the most likely to break and vote with Republicans, but our strategy is to target everyone. If you've got a Democratic senator, you got to call them. You got to say, do not move forward on this dirty MAGA CR. Need to see you oppose it at the cloture level, need to see you oppose it on the floor. We need to just see you in blanket opposition. If Republicans are not willing to negotiate with Democrats on common sense protections like ensuring the administration follows the law, on common sense stuff like passing a clean budget or a funding bill, then they shouldn't count on Democratic votes to let it pass or let it move to the floor. This is not hard.
I want to be really clear that the reason why you might see Dems cave is because they are terrified that they will be blamed for a shutdown.
Right.
That is why you might see Dems cave. And we should be absolutely clear. It is what Democrats should do. Every single one of the 47 Senate Democrats should stand in front of the Capitol tomorrow morning and say, we will go into the Capitol and vote for a clean funding bill for 1 month to open up negotiation. What we will not do is agree with the hostage takers to give a blank check to Elon Musk. It is the Republicans who are pushing for something beyond a clean funding bill,
That's right.
not the Democrats.
Right.
The Republicans are responsible for any shutdown that occurs. The Democrats are simply asking to continue the funding levels on March 15th that exist on March 14th. That is what the ask is. The offer on the table from Republicans is a blank check from Musk. Now, Leah's exactly right. All Democrats need to hear. We have a target list of Dems who we have been worried about, and we've been trying to drive additional calls. So I will tell you who they are. Kelly in Arizona, Bennett in Colorado, Schatz in Hawaii, Peters in Michigan. Uh, Masto and Rosen in Nevada, Shaheen in New Hampshire, Gillibrand in New York. Although in minutes ago I got some early good signs about Gillibrand in New York, but we should amp up the pressure. Reed in Rhode Island. Those are Tina Smith in Minnesota. I'm sorry. Those are the top targets, but hopefully like, if you heard your senator's names, maybe you're more encouraged to call. But really, if you, like Leah said, if you have a Democratic senator, call. Now is the time. If you have time tomorrow during lunch, show up at a local office. That would also be great. Okay, we're going to go back to questions that are coming in live. Anne asks, can you oh, yeah. Anne asks, can you explain what the Senate Dems can do to stop DOGE from cutting Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security, the Affordable Care Act? Is the Affordable Care Act being cut in the current budget? Leah?
Yeah. So fundamentally, there are a couple of things. Like one is these are programs that are mandated by law. Like you actually don't have the authority to cut them, just unilaterally in via the administration. We are gearing up for and we anticipate that the big tax fight over the course of this year is going to be one of the places where they try to go in and cut some of these programs. And that's for a really simple reason. They've made very clear that they want to give a massive, massive, massive giveaway to billionaires. They want to reauthorize the Trump tax cuts and expand on them. They cannot do that if they do not pull money from some of these programs. And so they're telegraphing that way in advance, even as some of the more vulnerable members deny that it's happening. And so there is going to be a massive legislative fight over trying to stop them from doing that. They're gonna put Medicare on the chopping block, or sorry, Medicaid on the chopping block. They're gonna go for SNAP. There's a real possibility that they're gonna go for other things. Now, simultaneously, what we're also seeing right now as they go into the Social Security Administration, as they go into veterans affairs, like they're making cuts that will make programs worse, make it harder for people to access them. kind of like making it more inaccessible in order to save money because some people will simply be locked out of the services, right? There's talk about them cutting down on the ability to file claims via phone and making people go into offices, which they are all, while they are also closing offices. So your office is farther away. So there's a bunch of stuff that is happening via the administrative side that we are also tracking and need to be pushing back and advocating against. Anything to add there?
Oh no, I think you covered it. I think you covered it. Using the leverage that Democrats have in the funding bill right now to request safeguards, there's an obvious thing you could do
Yep.
to protect Medicaid. Like
Right,
that's the
exactly.
ask.
That is
That's
the
the
ask.
ask, folks.
Yes.
Uh,
Sorry. Thank you.
well,
Brought it back to the ask.
we're not going to get there unless we get a clean short-term funding bill to negotiate that ask. But that is what Democrats were asking for, including in the Senate. What, as of like 5 days ago, we
Yeah.
just want them to maintain that ask.
Yeah.
Oh, what a
We
what a
want
nice.
we want a guarantee that the president will follow the law. This should not be complicated.
Indeed. Kristen asked a very sweet question. How are you two doing? You're awesome, and it can't be easy to be targeted. What can we do to offer support? I did not
Oh,
plant that question, but appreciate
thank you.
appreciate the
Oops.
question. That is very nice. Thank you, Kristen. Thank you for all the upvotes. It's very sweet. Leah, how are you doing,
I'm
Leah?
fine. We're okay. Look, we signed up for this. We knew heading into this year, we knew after Trump won that if our movement was effective, if you were effective, we would get the attention of these folks. And we understood that that was something that we were going to be doing. And we also believe that this is the moment where it's a moment where people reveal who they are, right? Billionaires have revealed that they will bend the knee. They've revealed that they will do whatever they can to benefit themselves. Regular people, we are the ones who are going to fight back. We're the ones who are going to say no. We're the ones who are going to stand up. And so we're part of that with you. We're proud to be part of that with you. And we're endlessly inspired by you, honestly.
Yeah, I'm loving it.
Yeah.
How am I doing? Look, we are part of a nationwide movement of people fighting for democracy and against creeping authoritarianism. My God, what an honor it is to be part of this. I like we it's not just us who are under attack. Everyone who is organizing at the grassroots level, everybody is choosing to publicly say, "Hey, I'm against this." You're all taking on risk. It is not just us, and that is freaking inspiring. It really is. So I'm loving this. I love that we are so effective that they are scared and they are organizing against us and they're trying to come at us. It's a demonstration that what we're doing is working. It is a compliment the only way they could give it, which is they're taking the power that we are building seriously. Now we just got to keep on building. Um, okay, Mary Morgan says, please make public the deals Dems are making in the Senate about trading a vote on cloture for useless amendments.
I think we've kind of covered that, right?
Yeah, we're trying, Mary.
Yes,
We're
sign
trying.
up. We're doing anything here.
I've talked to Leah and I both have spent the day today and yesterday talking to a lot of journalists. If you follow us on Blue Sky, you will see we are not pulling punches. That's not how we operate. Look, we operate in the open. When we have an analysis, when I get intel that I believe and is shareable, I share it publicly because I can't coordinate behind closed doors. That's not where our power is. Our power is with people organizing. You have to understand what's going on to best organize. So we're trying. We're trying to tell everybody so that you can make informed decisions about how you organize. So next highest voted question, Kathy 9. How do we protect genderqueer people, the front lines of attack of the pride community, gender and freedom and safety for all?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of different levels to that question, and just to name, there's been a wholehearted, a full frontal attack on trans folks through this administration. There has been a really, really aggressive effort to go after stuff like passports, really just to redefine and essentially target the very existence of trans folks. And so I think first we have to recognize that as what is happening, and dismiss a lot of these kind of bad faith attempts to sort of frame it in less maximalist terms. They are coming after trans folks. They're coming after trans kids. They're coming after their very existence. And so the first part of that is just recognizing that and being committed to fighting back. Now, what I would say is there's a bunch of stuff that's moving through the administrative side. There is potential legislation that might be moving through Congress that would further entrench the MAGA administration or the administrative stuff is being challenged in court. We have seen some early successes in fighting back against some of the worst executive orders. There is Congress. We're going to have to be very, very on edge for any kind of legislation that's moving. Democrats have actually done a pretty good job so far of blocking together to oppose some of the worst and most harmful things that they have tried to move on LGBT issues. So we need to like have their backs, thank them, and keep them in position to continue to block that stuff. And then the other thing that I would say is really think about what is happening at the local and state level wherever you are, right? Because, a lot of these attacks, they're coming from the national level, but they're actually happening in people's workplaces. They're happening in people's schools. It's your employer who is suddenly being, not making available a unisex bathroom. It is your
Yeah.
school where there are parents who are trying to get any curriculum or any books that acknowledge the existence of LGBT people out of the curriculum. So think about, if you have a local provider of services, a local organization that is doing advocacy around what is happening in your community, think about how you can support them. If you have state efforts to pass a bill or to defend against bad legislation, think about how you can throw in there.
One thing, I mean, it's such a terrifying time.
Yeah.
There is, though, a reality that most of the time, most folks are not paying attention. But the amount of overreach we're seeing from this administration, the attack on the LGBTQ community, the attack on trans kids, there's a chance now to awaken people who didn't think this was an issue they cared about to actually come and be supportive allies. So if you were running an Indivisible group right now, what I would be asking yourself and your members is, how are we showing up for those who are under threat right now? How can we be on the right side of this issue? How are we lending our people power to this cause? There are more people who could become advocates here. This is an opportunity to pull them into the fight. This is the civil rights fight of our lifetime, quite arguably. They should be part of this fight. So the question is practically, how do you do that? Leah mentioned a lot of ways. I think you should be using your Indivisible group to firmly plant yourself on the right side here and figure out productive actions to take. Um, got a question from Mandy next with 102 votes. Are we any closer to the 3.5% you said we need for a mass movement? For folks who don't know, 3.5%, is this
3.5% is kind of the population that you want to engage in kind of active opposition to an authoritarian regime. And,
that's right.
honestly, my take here is we have to
Erica
keep
Chenoweth. That's who I
Erica
was thinking.
Chenoweth.
Thank you,
Sorry, there we go.
Jonathan. Yeah,
Yeah.
I was
My
thinking that.
take here is, the way that you build that is by continuing to mobilize, by continuing to stage actions, by continuing to pull people into active organizations. So I would say the question there is not like, is our email list growing? It's how many people are showing up to local Indivisible events? How many people are showing up to Indivisible rallies, protests, actions? Because we got to grow the collective muscle in order to have the ability to stage bigger and bigger acts of resistance.
I mean, I agree with all that. I would say the simple answer, Mandy, is no. We are not big enough yet. And one of the drives we should have right now is, how do we pull more people into this movement? Part of the point of an April 5th national movement protest that's not just Indivisible, but is Indivisible and 5051 and labor unions and Move On and WFP and all of these partners. Part of the point of that is to be bigger than just us and get the folks who are currently with us but not organizing with us off the sidelines and into this, because we do need to continue growing. That's where our power comes from. We got a question from Jane. Why are you not encouraging Indivisible members to help with the 3 seats that could flip the House? I've been on phone banking for Josh in Florida. Florida 6 have spoken to so many Democrats who didn't even know about the election. And so for folks who aren't following this as closely, there are a set of special elections for Republican members who have entered the administration, or there are other vacancies. And so why aren't we doing more? And Jane, I appreciate the question. Look, you should push us, and I appreciate questions like this. Leah, what are we doing for these special elections?
Yeah, so first of all, I would say these are different special elections. They're happening at different times. There's still, like the scheduling of Elise Stefanik's seat and the race. What we're doing right now is we're trying to hold the Supreme Court in Wisconsin. That has been our priority electorally when it comes to special elections right now, or off year elections right now. There is a candidate who is running, Susan Crawford. She is up against an Elon Musk funded right winger who would flip the balance of the Wisconsin Supreme Court back to a MAGA controlled court. We gotta hold that seat. So that's been where we're putting our effort. That doesn't mean that there's not lots of other good and important work to be done. It just means that we're one organization and we can't do all of it ourselves.
Hmm. But more power to you if you're finding ways to participate in these campaigns that Indivisible isn't running active program in. Great,
Yeah.
do it, do it. We encourage you to do it. We do. Um, okay, we got from Patricia Corrigan. How do we give support to intimidated Republicans unless they can move past their real fear of violence? They can't stand up against Trump. You know, Patricia, I I think I've heard reporting about real fear of violence for Republicans. I'm not saying it's not real. I think a lot of folks who are standing up right now have a real fear of violence, and a lot of people are still standing up because they think it's the right thing to do rather than just backing an authoritarian who is demolishing our constitutional republic. If a Republican representative says, "I would do the right thing, but I'm scared," they should probably find a job that doesn't involve them engaging in acts of public courage and bravery to legislate for 350 million Americans. I'm sorry. I find that to be kind of a bullshit excuse from representatives.
Yeah, I mean, so I want to say I think that it is unbelievably bad and damaging that we are in an era where elected officials have real fears of violence. I think that is
Of
incredibly
course.
it's incredibly scary. It is driven by the escalation of the MAGA movement. It not is not right and is not fair. And so I don't want to gloss over anyone's real fear of violence. However, I think in this moment, if you are an elected official, you ran for office and you said, I want this job that involves representing people in order to defend and protect the Constitution of the United States. Most jobs don't make you swear that oath, right? If you would like to do something else, you can do something else. But if you chose to do that, then I think your elected official or your constituents have a right to expect you to do that.
You're here. Okay. Jody asks, are you slash we urging Dems to form a shadow cabinet? Are some of them in favor? What are the good reasons to do this? This is a question that's come up actually pretty regularly over the past few weeks. I've seen it get some additional play in different parts of the ecosystem. And we've talked about this question a bit too. Leah, any new thoughts on shadow cabinet? Timothy Snyder, I think, has been pushing it too, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So just to be honest, so we've heard a couple of different versions of this. I think it's really important that Democrats get a tighter and more consistent and clearer messaging operation that is pushing out the key stories of what is happening and that is taking a real confrontational and oppositional posture to the Trump administration
Yep.
rather than kind of
Yep.
like, dodging some of the plays. Um, I'm not necessarily convinced about whether I think a shadow cabinet could be a really cool way to do that. It's not clear to me that it's the only way to do that, right? Like we've got an ongoing thing where you want to have people focus primarily on the policies and the harm rather than the individual personalities on the Democratic side. So I think it's a little bit of a 50-50. But if the question is kind of like, why is it not happening? The answer is nobody's freaking coordinated. Like it's not that simple or it's not that hard. There's not a consistent Democratic leadership strategy of presenting a clear and aggressive opposition, and that would be a foundational requirement for something like an effort that would require that kind of organization.
Look, I've crapped on this idea from the Raging Cajun James Carville a lot, but I will just bring it up. A popular idea in Democratic circles, which we heard from James Carville a couple of weeks ago, is that Democrats should roll over and play dead, that they should be quiet, that they shouldn't be noticed, that the Republicans will become unpopular naturally, and we should just wait for that to happen. I strongly disagree. I think it's a bad strategy. I do think we should be organizing and fighting back. I do not know an example in history or internationally of authoritarians being successfully pushed back by meekness and cowardliness and quietness. Haven't seen it. If you've got an example, I'll look at it. But if you're asking yourself, why aren't some Dems doing the obvious thing, like Leah's saying? Well, it's because they actually disagree with you strategically, not just on the tactic.
Yeah.
So we need to be supporting those Dems who agree with us strategically and asking them to do those tactics and demonstrating that there's public support for it.
And I do just want to note, like, you might be like, James Carville, nobody listens to James Carville. James Carville is briefing the Democratic caucus at or at a retreat this week.
Yeah.
So, like, there he is in fact in active conversation with a bunch of the people who are involved in making these decisions, such that they are dedicating time to talking about it.
It's 4 o'clock. I really want to get to the second next question here, and I also want to plug. Remember, we are going to send a survey out, a follow-up email after this in just an hour or
Yeah.
two. That's our goal, or later today. Please take a look at it. Please fill it out. I will take that data tonight or tomorrow morning. I'll let enough folks respond, and then pass that on to Senate Democrats. I need your responses there, so please do. Uh, Jerry asked about the strategy behind the April 5th rallies. I think we already answered that.
Yeah.
Leah,
Yeah,
anything
I think
more?
that's right. Yeah.
We're trying to
Yeah, we're
build the
trying to
movement.
get,
We're trying
yeah,
to get more people
we
there
want to get out.
and demonstrate a sign of success and building momentum. But John asked, this is the first question that we've had on Khalil, and I do want to get to
Yeah.
it. Mahmoud Khalil, how do we protest the arrest of an activist with no charges, then not allowing him to speak to his lawyer? This is a clear attempt to intimidate and stifle protests going forward. Thank you for the question, John. I was and am shocked by this. Leah, do you want to give an update on what exactly happened for people who weren't
Yeah,
watching
sure.
and what to
Very,
do?
very quickly. So, Mahmoud Khalil, who was one of the student protesters at Columbia around Gaza and the Gaza encampment, was detained while he was coming home with his wife, who was 8 months pregnant, by folks from DHS. He is here in the U.S. on a green card. He is married to an American citizen. There have been no charges in any filed against him. And the administration will not disclose any reason other than that they simply disagree with his political views and his self-expression. This is, I just cannot stress enough, a five-alarm fire
Yeah.
for anybody who cares about freedom of speech in this country, anybody who cares about basic rules in this country. The administration cannot simply decide to deport people because they disagree with their political beliefs. It is, it is the most obvious and profound and just an alarming attack on the First Amendment. I would say the first thing that we got to do here, and this is, I wish I had new and more striking tactical or advice, but I think there have been great protests in New York that are really elevating this and
Yeah.
making clear how furious people are. I think that campus folks are organizing because this is obviously a threat, part of a broader attack on campuses and higher education. I also think we just got to call our elected officials. Like, I'm going to be honest, it took a bunch of Democrats way too long to treat this like the five-alarm fire that it was. We had some folks who were out early and who were pushing, but Democratic leadership issued pretty weak, pretty limited statements about this a couple of days after it happened. We need the entire caucus. We need everybody, every organization that represents you all collectively saying that this is an enormous problem, supporting, using our voices to add heft to the legal case that they are going to pursue to protect him and to get him released. We just need to make sure that there's a ton of attention on this because if it can happen to one person, it can happen to any of us.
Here's a very simple thing that you can do if you've got a Democratic representative. Chris Murphy recorded a really good video very soon after the news of this broke. It was good. He was the only senator who I saw out there. He's the leader on that. Great. He did a good action. If you've got a Democratic senator who is not Chris Murphy, ask why they haven't done the same thing. Simple as that. We're trying to raise the alarm and educate more people to this. Why aren't they doing what they can do? Right now, they've got a bully pulpit. They can focus attention on this. I want to be clear. You don't have to agree with what anybody is protesting about to also believe that it is very important that people have the right to peacefully protest. That's basic. That's basic. So I think you should identify who is doing the good action and then ask your rep, okay, that's the bar. Why aren't you meeting it yet?
Yeah,
That's something
right.
you can do right now.
Right.
Okay, we're a little bit over, as we always go over. I love this chat and voting system. You're always presenting us with a lot of good questions. I feel like we're building well together. Thank you for the emojis. Thank you for being here. Look out for the survey that's going to come to you later today. Please join us again next Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. We will be here. Please let friends, family know. Help build this. Submit questions. Keep building. Show up at town halls. Show up at empty chair town halls. Make your voice heard during recess. This is big. It's an opportunity to drive the narrative. It's an opportunity to help Democrats find their spines. It's an opportunity to make Republicans feel like they're on the outs. This is how we actually drive what is possible in Washington. So thank you all for building with us. Thanks for being here. We'll see you again in a week.